You receive a salary of $5,000. Suddenly life feels good. You pass a restaurant, you go inside, you order a steak, maybe a glass of wine. Then you take a taxi home, stop at the grocery store, and fill the entire cart. 3 weeks later, something very different happens. You pass the same restaurant and you don't even look at it. You check your wallet and realize you only have $20 left. Nothing changed in the world, but your behavior changed completely. And the reason is simple: most people don't control their spending, their emotions do. Today, I'll show you one simple tool that fixes this problem. It's called budgeting. And if you want to understand how money really works, subscribe to the channel and check the free webinar link under this video. Now let's talk how budgeting actually works. Hey, I'm Ravi Gabis and welcome back to the Ravi Gabis Show, where we unlock the secrets of real wealth every single day. Today, I want to talk about one of the most important tools for controlling spending: budgeting. Why do we need budgeting? The purpose of budgeting is very simple. Budgeting helps us live within the amount of money that we actually have today. Let me give you a very simple example. Think about the national budget of a country. For example, the United States has a national budget, and inside that budget, there are different categories. There is money for schools, money for roads, money for social security payments, and money for many other things. Now imagine that the government allocated a certain amount of money for schools this year. If that money is used up, then schools cannot receive more funding until the next budget period. That is why governments approve the budget at the beginning of the year. They decide how much money will be spent in each category. In personal finance, we can use a very similar system. We call it envelope budgeting method. Budget always has two main parts: income and spending. Income is the money you receive. For most people, the most traditional form of income is a salary. If you are an entrepreneur, we discussed this before, you should pay yourself a salary. That salary becomes the foundation of your personal and family budget. Now let's talk about how this works in personal finance. Imagine the situation. It is the end of the month and you receive your salary. Let's say $5,000. The money arrives on your card. You may, or maybe you receive it in a cash. How do you feel? Usually you feel good. The money is in your pocket and psychologically you feel richer. You're going home and you pass by a nice restaurant. You think to yourself, today I finished work a little earlier, had a good month, why not reward myself? So you go inside, you order a nice steak. Maybe you even order a glass of wine. Time passes very quickly. Suddenly you realize that it's already late and you need to go home. Instead of taking the bus, you decide to take a taxi. And on your way home, you start feeling a little guilty about sitting alone in that restaurant. So you decide to buy something nice for your family. You stop by the grocery store, you buy many things, maybe you even fill an entire cart. You leave the store carrying two heavy bags. And maybe you even bought a cake because today is salary day. Now imagine the opposite situation. It is the last day before the next salary. You leave the office and you pass the same restaurant, but this time you don't even look at it. You know that you only have $20 left, maybe even 10. Instead of going to a restaurant, you stop at a small grocery store, you buy some milk, maybe a few potatoes, just to prepare something simple for dinner. So the question is, why does this happen? Why at the beginning of the month are you relaxed and spending freely, but at the end of the month you suddenly become very careful with money? The answer is emotional behavior. Most people make spending decisions based on emotions. Their decisions depend on how much money they see in their pocket at that moment. Budgeting helps us remove these emotional decisions and replace them with rational decisions made with clear mind. The envelope budgeting method helps us do exactly that. A budget has two parts: income and spending. Spending itself can be divided into two categories: survival spending and non-survival spending. What is survival spending? Survival spending includes the expenses that you cannot avoid paying. Now, here's an important question. What should be the first item in the list of survival spending. Many people forget about this because they do not consider it survival spending. But we discussed this many times. The first item in your budget should be paying yourself. Why don't people usually pay themselves first? Because technically they can avoid it, they can skip it. But that is exactly why you must turn it into survival spending. If you want to understand how to do that, watch the previous videos where we discussed this principle. So the first rule is simple. 10% goes to yourself. This percentage is fixed. It cannot be reduced. You can choose 15%, 20%, or even 30% if you want. But whatever percentage you choose, you must remain fixed. After that come the other survival expenses. For example, mortgage payments. You cannot avoid paying your mortgage. Then utilities. You cannot avoid paying electricity, water, or heating. These are survival expenses. After survival spending comes the second category, non-survival spending. This category may include many different things. For example, family expenses, gas, clothes, travel, food, support for parents, and a fund of unexpected situations. You can include anything you want in this category. Now, here's the key idea. When you receive your salary, you must clearly understand that a large part of that money is not really yours. The 10% that you pay to yourself is yours, but for the future. Mortgage money is not yours. Utility money is not yours. So you must subtract those expenses from your salary list. Let's imagine you earn $7,500 per month. You immediately pay yourself 10%, which is $750. Then you pay your mortgage, let's say $1,700. Then utilities, maybe $400. That means this money is already allocated. $7,500 minus these survival expenses leaves $4,650. This is what we call your real disposable income. This is the money you can distribute between the other categories. Before doing that, you should analyze your spending for a couple of months and estimate percentages for each category. For example, 25% for family expenses, 10% for gas, 15% for clothes, 15% for travel, 25% for food, 5% to help parents, 5% for unexpected expenses. Now you take the $4,650 and distribute it according to these percentages. For example, 1,162 for family spending, 465 for gas, 697 for clothes, the same for travel, 1,162 for food, 232 to support parents, the same for unexpected situations. Now imagine a different situation. What if this month you earn only $5,000? Here people usually make a big mistake. They behave as if nothing changed. They continue spending as if their income were still higher. But the correct approach is different. First, you still pay yourself 10%. It's $500. Then you still pay your mortgage $1,700. Then utilities $400. These expenses do not disappear. So from $5,000, you subtract these survival expenses. Now you have only $2,400 left. Before you had $4,650 of disposable income. Now you have $2,400, almost half as much. But many people continue spending as if nothing changed. Sometimes they justify it by saying, we deserve this. But the reality is simple. If you deserved that lifestyle, you would have earned that income this month. But you did not. And this lesson is especially important when raising children. Many parents believe that children should receive everything they want because they are children, flowers of life. But that is a big mistake. When children grow up without understanding how money works, they believe that money simply appears almost like it grows on trees. Then they start using credit cards and making irresponsible decisions. You should not be afraid to explain financial reality to your children. If you say, we cannot buy this extra lesson right now because of our financial situation, a child will not think you are a loser. Instead, the child will learn responsibility. In my own childhood, money was not always easy. My father left our family and financially we struggled for some time. At the same time, my father was building a huge house and doing quite well financially. Even though I didn't live in that house and didn't always have the things he had, I never stopped being proud of my father. So Children can understand much more than we sometimes think. That is why it's important to teach them that money requires responsibility. Now let's return to budgeting. The key idea is that you fix percentages and follow these percentages. But there is also flexibility. For example, imagine that you built your budget based on an income of $7,500, but one month you earn $10,000. You still pay yourself 10%, $1,000, mortgage 1,700, utilities 400. Now you have $6,900 left. That is much more than before. You now have additional money that you can allocate. You could increase your investments, you could save the extra money, or you could allocate more money to categories like travel, for example. If earlier you had 1,100 for food and now you have 1,700, you may decide to save the difference or redirect it to another category. However, there is one category that I strongly recommend never removing. That category is unexpected expenses. If you do not have a reserve for unexpected situations, then every emergency will force you to touch your savings. And once you start touching your savings, the temptation becomes very strong. That is why it's important to keep this reserve fund. Finally, I want to say something honestly. This budgeting system usually does not work perfectly from the first month. You will need several months to adjust it. You will need to observe your spending and correct percentages. But once you find the right balance, you will become much more disciplined with money. Many people also use another method, automation. For example, you automatically transfer 10% of your income into investments every month. You buy stocks automatically, and you do not even notice that money leaving your account. This is actually one of the best strategies. But even then, you still need to control the rest of your spending. The important principle is simple. When you start controlling your spending immediately decreases. Why? Because where your focus goes, your results grow. That is enough for today, I guess. Subscribe to the channel and check the free webinar link under this video. See you tomorrow.